About a month ago, I got this book and I made a review video for it that I never ended up publishing. I had good things, I had bad things to say about the book. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It was a genuinely decent product. It was a solid 7 out of 10 product, but as I was editing the video, I began to think more and more about why am I editing this video right now? Moreover, I really started to wonder why, right now, am I reviewing an anthology book. We just had a brand new edition of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. We got a brand new Dungeon Master's Guide, a brand new Player's Handbook, and a brand new Monster Manual. And those things are packed to the brim with new spells, new monsters, new magic items, all kinds of crazy new stuff. And the rules aren't completely new, they're an expanded version of 5th edition. But nonetheless, a lot of people are seeing it as a new edition, regardless what Wizards wants to call it. And it was a big deal. It was a lot of big products reveals. And after all of those books come out, the next book in the brand new edition is an anthology? And not like, oh, I don't know, a brand new campaign adventure to play your brand new rules in? We finished off the last edition of D&D with Vecna Eve of Ruin, a stellar, in my opinion, campaign that went all the way to level 20, the second time that's ever happened in 5th edition's history. And that was a hell of a way to celebrate 5th edition and send it off with a bang, with a big campaign that goes all the way to level 20 featuring one of the most iconic D&D villains in history. And then after we get all the core rulebooks to then launch into the next edition, we start it with a dragon anthology. And don't get me wrong, it's a decent book, like I mentioned. It's got very cool artwork, some of the anthology quests are not too bad, but why don't we have an adventure? And why are we getting more anthologies as of recent than we have before? And honestly, when you look at the whole scope of new D&D books coming out, it's very odd, because after this, we're now getting effectively the new Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, but it's not one book, it's two. It's one Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide book for players, and then another book for Dungeon Masters. Did they need to split it into 2 books? No, but Dungeon Masters buy 80% of all D&D products, so by making it into 2 books, they can sell the Dungeon Masters 2 books and the players 1 book. Because if you think Dungeon Masters are only going to buy the DM book and not the actual player book, you're out of your mind. If that was the case, DMs wouldn't buy the player's handbook to begin with. But then after that, we get the campaign setting, hoorah, for Eberron. And also the Artificer class, which we all can agree on should have been included with the player's handbook right from the get-go. It's not like they needed more time for it. They could have just delayed all those books and put the Artificer in with the player's handbook, but no. We had to put it all out around the same time, and on top of that, now we have a better reason to sell the Eberron book, because it's not just a campaign setting for Dungeon Masters to buy now. No. Now players will need to buy it because it has the Artificer in it. Made all the better because you cannot buy individual things from books on D&D Beyond now anymore. A la carte is gone. You want the Artificer class? You're buying the whole fucking book. Fuck you. And then we're getting Lorwyn Shadowmoor, the campaign setting, which is a very weird choice. Lorwyn/Shadowmoor is a plane of existence from the Magic the Gathering card game. Magic the Gathering operates where there is like multiple different worlds out there, and each different world has a different theme and comes with its own different cards. The plane of Duskmourn is an entire world built out of a haunted house that's just keeping people trapped within the house as it expands more and more. The plane of Innistrad is a high gothic plane full of vampires and werewolves and spirits and ghosts. The plane of Zendikar is a very high fantasy adventurous plane that has clerics and wizards and all kinds of rambunctious things, but also, you know, a little bit of eldritch horror with the things like, you know, Eldrazi, and so on and so forth. There's many different planes. And Lorwyn/Shadowmoor is one of those planes from a very long time ago. And to my understanding, when Lorwyn/Shadowmoor came out all those years ago, it wasn't super beloved by people who played Magic the Gathering at the time. It introduced a lot of new weird mechanics like untapping and -1/-1 counters that at the time were not well liked by people who play them. And now some people look fondly back on them, but a lot of people just think it was a lot of too much stuff for Magic. And at the time, the lead designers said that it was very unlikely that Magic the Gathering would ever be returning to Lorwyn/Shadowmoor because of the mixed feelings that it got from the players. But now, all these years later, we are in fact returning to Lorwyn/Shadowmoor, and it's going to be another Magic the Gathering set next year, which I, a Magic the Gathering player, am very excited about. But if you don't play Magic the Gathering, you just play Dungeons & Dragons, and you see a new campaign setting on the horizon that's Lorwyn/Shadowmoor, it doesn't do anything for you. Wizards making a campaign setting in a realm related to D&D that people know is a safe bet. See the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide being split into 2 books. People know Faerun, they know the Sword Coast, they know Baldur's Gate, especially because of the goddamn video game. They know Waterdeep, they know the Northern Wastes, Frozen Wastes, goddammit. But your established audience knows these places. Your established audience who just plays D&D doesn't know what Lorwyn is. And this isn't the first time D&D has done this before. We did Mythic Odysseys of Theros as a D&D book. They've done Ravnica as a D&D book, and now they're doing Lorwyn Shadowmoor as a D&D book. And again, I'm excited for that. I think it's going to be really, really cool, but I already know what Lorwyn Shadowmoor is. That's the benefit with crossover IPs, but most of your established audience doesn't. And don't get me wrong, I think some Magic the Gathering players will pick up the Lorwyn Shadowmoor book when it comes out, but I don't think a lot of people in the broader audience will, because the broader audience doesn't know what it is. That's always the tricky thing when it comes to crossover IPs, right? Like with Magic right now, doing a lot of Universe Beyond crossover IPs with the fucking Marvel Spider-Man set about to come out, so help me God. It serves as an introduction to Magic the Gathering for people who like that idea and that IP, but have never been involved in Magic before. And I've seen that happen with my own 2 eyes. I've seen people come into my local gaming store and pick up Doctor Who cards or Warhammer cards, or even get interested in the Assassin's Creed cards because they like that IP from outside of Magic and they want to get involved in Magic because they like that IP. And that works. However, the vast majority of people who play Magic don't typically pick up those Universe Beyond cards because they don't like being outside of the Magic realm. The crossover IPs truly serve to influence potential buyers outside of Magic to get into Magic. But I don't think the same thing can apply to Dungeons & Dragons. Because like I said, 80% of Dungeons & Dragons books are purchased by Dungeon Masters, not by players. On top of that, Lorwyn Shadowmoor has to be a really, really interesting new IP for Dungeons & Dragons people in order for them to play it. I, like I said, will already be buying it, but I already know what Lorwyn Shadowmoor is, and I love that IP. But if I didn't know what Lorwyn Shadowmoor was, I'd be far more skeptical on paying $70 to $80 on a brand new book for a brand new campaign area from a different IP that I don't know. It would be far safer for me to buy into something that I already do know. Like for example, if Wizards decided to make an Orith campaign setting instead of a Lorwyn Shadowmoor campaign setting, I think that would sell way better in D&D audience spheres than Lorwyn would. Because people know what Orith is, they know who Mordenkainen is, they know who Tasha is, they know what Orith is. So finally getting a campaign setting for that would be incredible, and it would serve as like, oh, I heard about that, I want to check that out, for both players and Dungeon Masters. But Lorwyn Shadowmoor doesn't appeal to people who don't already know what it is. They would have to invest themselves to learn about it before possibly making the plunge and buying it. And I don't know if Wizards is okay to make that gamble. And even if Wizards' hands were tied where they had to make like a Magic crossover IP book again, like Theros, like Ravnica, why Shadowmoor? Yes, it's coming out in Magic, so you have crossover with a brand new Magic set and the D&D book, but why not use a more popular IP from Magic? Why not use Innistrad and make an Innistrad campaign setting? Why not use the original Magic the Gathering setting? You could bring in Urza and Mishra and the Weatherlight and make a huge campaign setting out of that. That would be phenomenal. And way, way more people know about that, both in D&D and Magic, than they do about Shadowmoor. All this to say, it feels like Wizards is a little directionalist right now. Like they're sailing a boat with no rudder. Like they're just kind of driving aimlessly and just throwing everything at the curb to see what sticks. And I think the reason we've been seeing so many anthologies as of recent, and why the anthology Dragon Delves was the first book afterwards, is because it's safe bets. Because if you release a campaign setting and nobody likes the campaign, the whole book is a flop. But when you release an anthology, well, people can pick it up, and even if they don't like some of them, they'll usually like others of them, which is exactly what happens with me. There's 2 or 3 of these adventures that I just think are poorly written and are not worth running, but there's at least 5 or 6 that I think are incredible. And that's an easier sell than to say, this one adventure is good or this one adventure is bad. You put all your eggs into one basket, and if it flops bad. but if it does well, it does well. And that's why we got Keys to the Golden Vault. That's why we got Quest to the Infinite Staircase, and that's why we got Dragon Delves. All in all, I think Wizards is playing things very, very safe right now. The one exception being the Lorwyn Shadowmoor book. That one is just a complete anomaly to me. And again, I will be buying it because I do love Lorwyn Shadowmoor. I think it's an incredible plane, and I'm really excited to see a D&D universe in that. But most people don't know what that is. And I see that as a risk, which I think is a weird choice for Wizards to make a risk on. If the anthology series is to mitigate risk, and making 2 books out of the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide featuring people from Baldur's Gate, which came out 2 years ago and D&D is still riding off that high, is a safe bet. And featuring a campaign setting for Eberron, including the Artificer, is a safe bet, because people from both the DM side and the player side will buy it. But the Shadowmoor Lorwyn book is not a safe bet. And that's really interesting to me. I would love to see D&D come out with another big, brand new edition campaign, because we haven't got that yet, and nor is there even one on the horizon. We have this big brand new edition with all the new core rule books, but we have no big cool campaign to play these new rules in. We've got an anthology, a Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, an Eberron campaign setting, and then a Lorwyn Shadowmoor campaign setting, but no big adventure. And I think if Wizards really wants to bring up a shit ton of hype for D&D all over again, after the massive downfall of hype it has been since the core rulebooks came out, I think we need that adventure. We need some big bombastic tale that goes from like level 1 to 10, maybe even level 1 to 12, or hell, even 1 to 15. Something amazingly cool like that, with a lot of really cool characters from a very unique place that is well known to everybody, like Orith. Or some people might say Dark Sun. It's probably not gonna happen, but it would be really cool. And I think D&D needs that now more than ever. But I would love to know what you guys think. Leave your comments down below.